North from Vancouver Island to Alaska spreads a coastal universe of islands, rainforests, wild rivers, cold water seas. Home to 20% of the world's wild salmon. To myriad forms of dolphins and whales and seals. It is home to wolves and to the rare white spirit bears that live nowhere else on Earth. Home to vibrant coastal communities and to the people of the First Nations, whose lives and livelihoods depend on them all. Welcome to the Great Bear Sea.
You know, everything that we eat, whether it's intertidal, whether it's bottom fish, whether it's herring, whether it's herring spawn, whether it's salmon, everything comes out of that ocean. It's a lifeline. It's a lifeline for our people.
But the Great Bear Sea is also a lifeline for trade between continents, one that is now straining under the heavy demands of a changing climate and more people. Faced with exponential growth and an uncertain future of the sea that sustains them, British Columbia's coastal communities are coming together to help steer the changes for the lasting benefit of all. And it all begins with a plan.
BC and First Nations, local communities, stakeholders have been doing resource planning in the general area for some time now. Most of that's been done in the terrestrial environment, so it was a sort of a natural extension to kind of move that type of planning into the coastal and marine environments. We have this sort of common understanding on how we're approaching natural resource management, both land and sea, and that really creates efficiencies in terms of how we go about our business, saves time and money, and also provides a level of certainty for different user groups that want to use that space for different purposes.
It's based on an ecosystem-based management framework, so it says all activities, whether that's commercial fishing or some other activities, you need to be looking at kind of what are the impacts on the overall environment, how does it affect the human community.
The idea of integrated planning really comes from the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, which was ratified in 1994. And one of the major bases for that was to ensure that coastal communities are connected to the resources that are on their doorsteps and that independent fishermen have access to those resources.
The partnership between the provincial government of British Columbia and 18 First Nations, called MAP, collaboratively developed 4 sub-regional marine plans that integrate best available science and local and traditional knowledge with extensive input from marine users and community members. Together, the MAP partners are moving toward a better future for the Great Bear Sea and for all who are tied to it.
We want to look at the big picture and look at how our economies and our ecosystems are tied together and how they impact one another. We have to do it collectively.
Rolling out a plan like this is not the end of something, it's pretty much the beginning of it.
Among the growing number of countries and other jurisdictions who are advancing marine planning for the oceans, British Columbia's Great Bear Sea represents one of the largest marine planning areas in the world. The MAP marine plans designated 4 subregions within the Great Bear Sea: Haida Gwaii, North Coast, North Vancouver Island, and the Central Coast. Each in turn provides recommendations for a diversity of activities to benefit human well-being, economic opportunities, and ocean conservation. General management zones, areas that serve a wide range of public, private, and community marine uses. Special management zones, areas that allocate space for high priority or high potential marine uses. Protection management zones, areas that allocate space primarily for conservation. Since MAP is a partnership between the province of British Columbia and First Nations, the marine plans do not address federally regulated activities, such as transportation and fisheries. As the marine plans move forward with implementation, there's a need to work closely with the federal government.
We've had tremendous uptake from the local communities, from the fisheries groups, from the tourism groups, who've all agreed that this is an important piece of the world and we need to do what we can to make sure that it's going to be there for all of us to use into the future.
The partnership's plans are ultimately aimed at balancing long-term economic development with environmental stewardship. And at the foundation of the plans is a merger of modern science with traditional and local knowledge.
First Nations had been investing a lot of time, intellectual capacity, knowledge, both traditional knowledge and scientific data, to make marine use plans that the communities were comfortable with and were really community driven. There was a collection of scientific data that included the bathymetry data, current data, and also biological data like the occurrence or presence of sea ducks, herring, kelp forests, all kind of mapped spatially, and that was made available to anyone who wanted it to identify areas that were ecologically important to commercial fisheries, important to the tourism and recreation sector, and areas that were culturally important.
Just this year alone, we're doing salmon work, we're doing rockfish, we're doing Dungeness crab, we're doing bears, and we're doing birds. And we're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in some of this work. You know, it's not cheap, but it's going to help us make sustainable decisions. And I think that's really what's important to the community.
So the MAP plans were sort of created based upon that vision that tries to balance out different economic interests with stewardship interests, incorporates different values from different communities and First Nations. On top of that, and to enable all of that work to be done, we had to collate a whole bunch of information together from different data sources to support the base information for the planning itself. And that hadn't been done before either. And all that really translates into, you know, more sound, lasting, durable decisions in this area.
It's not just about protecting everything. It's not just about developing everything. You know, it's about a balance. And what governs that essentially is our culture and our way of life. We have to be able to give future generations more than what we have today.
Those planning for the Great Bear Sea identified places for shellfish aquaculture and renewable energy developments, all in concert with local fisheries and marine tourism.
So we're building this sustainable tourism industry. We're building a sustainable shellfish industry, a sustainable salmon industry, a sustainable groundfish industry, but incrementally. Building it up slow so that you can't tear it down quickly. If you build stuff up too fast, it falls real fast.
The MAP Marine plans are committed to seeing Great Bear fishing economies better serve the people of the Great Bear Sea, seeing more of the catch delivered to local docks, processed by local people, creating local jobs.
We buy from select commercial fishermen based on their quality of catch, and we process it. We went from a staff from previous years of about 10 to 12 people, and this year, right now, I've got 23 people employed here. So we've increased, 13 new jobs this year alone.
We identified many places where the shellfish aquaculture can be developed as a sustainable business. So we're going to put several hundreds of long lines in the tenure. So we are planning to grow many millions of scallops in there. I would say the most important production of shellfish product in Canada.
Over the last 10, 15 years, when things started to fall apart economically, we started to diversify into like ecotourism, kayaking, whale watching, bear watching, etc. If you're going to have tourism, then you have to have compatible uses happening around it.
Here in Klemtu, we started up a company called Spirit Bear Lodge, and we've been slowly growing that over the last 15 years. And this year, we're going to employ about 45 people in my community, and it's now the second biggest industry in my community. And I think it's only going up, so it's been quite positive.
We're confident that we've provided a management plan that's going to lead to sustainable resource development.
And that includes, a network of marine protected areas, that protect biodiversity, but also provide resilience, from changes like, things like climate change.
In April 2015, the Great Bear Sea's powerful new alliance of stewards gathered to celebrate their unified vision for the waters that sustain them. A vision of economic prosperity, founded on ecological integrity, enduring for generations to come.
Today we are celebrating not one, but 4 marine plans, and not one, but 18 First Nations that are part of the MAP process. It's an impressive achievement, which was only made possible by compromise by every partner involved and a willingness to work together in a spirit of mutual respect and collaboration.
So we know that if we can get our ecosystems back in balance and make sure that we don't pollute the water, make sure that all of the nutrients that are required in the ocean and the rivers and the lakes and everything that feed our salmon and feed our halibut and feed everything that's there, if we can get that balance back, the natural capital that exists in that region will begin to bear fruit for us again.
So that all fits perfectly well with the way that the province's natural resource sector is moving towards more of an integrated approach to resource management, and the MAP plans align with that perfectly. So it's going to be quite an exciting time moving forward. The plan is now being currently implemented. It's just in the beginning phases, and things will change over time. We'll see changes with climate, we'll see changes with values, societal norms, so the plans were built with that adaptive sort of capacity. So it'll be great to see them implemented now and into the future and be improved over time.
In this generation's lifetime, it'll make things better. It'll also ensure that there will be something there for the next generation and the generation after that. And it saves the provincial government a whole lot of money. So it's just a win-win all the way around.